Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. This is the rundown. It's been an extraordinary 24 hours in Congress. It's that we believe at this point they're holding now what would be their fourth round of voting. If they're not holding it yet, they will be soon. That Speaker of the House has failed to be voted on after the second vote hasn't happened in over 100 years. We're now up to, I think, 150. Having won a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, Republicans are struggling to find their footing, having failed so catastrophically in the single most important and preliminary act in the House, which is electing a speaker. Without a speaker, they can't schedule votes, they can't schedule meetings, they can't even swear in new members of the House. So this is presumably very important. Now, they're not entitled to the speaker to elect a speaker themselves per se. The speaker is usually actually I think probably historically it has always been a member of the majority in the House, but that's simply because they're the majority and they have the power to elect whomever they choose. But it hasn't gone so this year. Congressman Kevin McCarthy has vowed that he will be the new speaker and is strongly seeking the role. However, a small yet dedicated group of 20 Republicans, dubbed the, quote, Chaos Caucus, or the Taliban 20, have just enough votes to block his election. Already saddled with a smaller majority than anticipated, a total of 222 seats. This is being hailed as a humiliating defeat for a party which typically is capable of burying disagreements in favor of party unity. With no candidate reaching the 218 votes needed to win House Speaker, the GOP majority is so disorganized that the Democratic nominee, Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, actually received more votes than McCarthy in the first round by a vote of 212 to 203. Note 212 is still below the 218 votes needed to win, but he's the minority party candidate is actually getting more votes than the majority one. McCarthy has been in back rooms trying to negotiate a deal that will get him to 218 votes, offering, for example, a lower threshold in the future for no confidence votes in the speaker position. But this deal, like any that is being floated, would significantly lower the amount of power that the House Speaker would have, and that is difficult for McCarthy, who is now already appearing very weak as he seeks to enter that office. And with only a 4-vote majority in the House, any small yet disaffected group of Republicans could effectively shut down the House, making his job even harder. Voting is scheduled to continue today, but McCarthy and his allies are actually attempting to adjourn the meeting until Thursday, trying to avoid another humiliating defeat. However, in order to do that, they would also need 218 votes, which they currently do not have. Without an adjournment, the House will vote today on a fourth round of voting, and their concern is, of course, that another loss would further entrench a momentum in the wrong direction. Brazilian authorities have said that they will reinstate fraud charges against U.S. Representative-elect George Santos, who will remain U.S. Representative-elect George Santos if the Republicans can't get their act together in the House. He is swirling in controversy regarding what appears to be a great many lies told by him during his election campaign. Brazil is claiming that while he was visiting a small clothing store in Rio de Janeiro, he spent nearly $700 using a stolen checkbook and using a fake identity. Nassau County District Attorney's Office has said it's looking into Santos, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District, though they failed to elaborate on precisely what or why. His FEC filings are now coming under scrutiny, with a number of expenditures coming in at exactly 1 penny below the dollar figure required to file receipts with the FEC. Previous campaign claims that he made while running included claims such as his grandparents fled the Holocaust, his mother died in the South Tower during 9/11, and regarding his tenure at New York University, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup, all of which have come under scrutiny, and a number of which he has now already admitted were in fact lies. Florida attorneys say that they have tried unsuccessfully for 4 months to serve David. Now, I should memorize how this guy's name. I think I detest the guy so much ever. Oh God, the head of the Church of Scientology. They've been attempting to serve him with a federal lawsuit for human trafficking filed by 3 former Scientologists who allege that they were forced to work for little or no pay starting at the age of 10. 5 other church entities have been named as co-defendants in the suit, and an attorney for the plaintiff has accused the leader of gamesmanship, saying that he has been deliberately evading service so as to avoid the suit. He has asked the court to find Mr. whomever, as having, okay, I'm going to take the, somebody's going to have to teach me how to pronounce his last name. The cult leader, as having been served, since by this point he is most likely aware of the lawsuit. Buffalo Bills defensive Damar Hamlin remains in critical condition and is unable to breathe on his own after his heart stopped following a tackle on Monday night in a game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to talk about this one. He was struck by Bengals receiver T. Higgs on a routine play that was not particularly violent for the sport. Higgs struck the defensive back in the chest with his right shoulder, and Hamlin wrapped his arms around Higgs and dragged him to the ground. Hamlin got up, apparently fine, adjusted his helmet, and then collapsed. His heart stopped at least once, and we know they were applying CPR for at least 10 or 15 minutes before they were able to get him to a level 1 trauma center nearby. That particular game has been suspended until further notice, and fans of both teams have been waiting outside the hospital in a candlelight vigil. And finally, 2 men have been charged in the attacks on 4 power substations over the Christmas holidays in Tacoma, Washington. The men are charged with conspiracy to damage energy facilities, possession of an unregistered firearm, and actually, that's it. It's those 2 charges. They face 20 years on the conspiracy charge, another 10 on possessing an unregistered firearm, and allegedly did $3 million worth of damage and cut power to thousands over the holidays. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the rundown. I'd like to cover a few things that are worth noting. Again, they're doing the vote right now, and it looks as if they're going to suffer a 4th defeat. That would, and I try not to toss the word humiliating around a lot. We all like to do that when speaking about parties that we disagree with. But this is unprecedented. They have the majority. They can't successfully elect a leader, the Speaker of the House. Without this, the House comes to a grinding halt. Again, they've never even gotten they haven't gotten to 2 rounds in over 100 years. I think it was 150 years for 3 rounds. They're now on the 4th. And the fact that the Democratic candidate is getting more votes than the Republican one is astonishing. In fact, if a couple of Republicans just really wanted to tweak their own party, it would take, 6 of the 222 Republicans could simply choose to vote for the Democratic candidate. I don't think that's going to happen, but wow, that would be a nice New Year's. That would be interesting. So they're voting now, we believe. Again, they're trying to suspend the vote until tomorrow to give them more time to get their ducks in a row, but they don't have they need to get a majority vote for that too, the same number, 118, and so far they don't have that ability. We'll be monitoring that on the Discord. Unless something really cray-cray happens, like the Democrat gets it, we're not going to keep up with the voting live. We've got it on our Discord. Come join us there, and you can see what's going on. You can help contribute to the show as well. So, Yeah, and we're following a couple other stories. We've got Operator Starsky on Friday. We've got Commander Lance McMillan tomorrow. So a couple of good shows planned for you all. I hope you guys will join us. I also hope you will like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel a lot. It's a great way. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and really does help us out. The algorithm here is God, and it is merciless. So we would appreciate that. A couple of things I wanted to discuss. The Denmark Hamlin is turning out to be an important issue. It just so happens that when I was, I don't know, this must have been at least 10 years ago, there was a young boy who got hit with a hockey puck and died as a result. And something about the nature of how it operated fascinated me, so I started to learn about a condition that is colloquially called a heart concussion. It is a very rare condition, but it has a very definitive, it has a number of definitive markings about it. You can often tell when somebody's suffering, or at least in the layman's sense. It requires a doctor to diagnose, obviously, but it's interesting how it occurs, and there's a couple of reasons why this is now becoming salient, as anti-vaxxers are claiming that he died as a result of vaccination. Well, it turns out if you get a vaccine, you're no less likely to die of car accidents or any number of other conditions. I'm not sure what his vaccination status was. I assume he was vaccinated because, if I recall, the NFL required vaccination of its players, but this has nothing to do with anything other than an extraordinarily rare condition, which presents itself very much like exactly what happened to him. So let's talk about this. This actually occurs much more often in boys, usually between the ages of 12 and 18. The reason is because at 12 and 18, usually the force involved in the sports is not considered enough to have professional or high-end padding. Doesn't look like at that age they're actually any more or less susceptible to it, but they have slightly less padding, and if the sport isn't taken necessarily as seriously. If Demar is to survive, and honestly, I'm not optimistic given his condition and given what it looks like happened. If he is to survive, it would only be because they had a medical staff right then and there capable of treating it. This is an extraordinarily serious illness or condition, and it depending on how you view the stats and the conditions of it, it's anywhere between 90 and 70% fatal. It used to be basically 95% fatal. It's only down to about 70% because of the carrying of defibrillators at games and stuff like that have helped, but honestly, it's extraordinarily serious. So here's this is essentially what it is. So a heart concussion is when you receive a blow to your heart at exactly the right moment. There is about a 20 millisecond window. According to this graphic, I've actually heard that the millisecond window is as low as 2 milliseconds. But you have to hit the heart in precisely this window. How much damage do you need to do? Well, the interesting thing is you can do it with a punch. This is one thing that's been theorized. You know, there's sort of the 5-finger exploding heart technique in, what was it? Quentin Tarantino's movie there, that you could actually reproduce something like that by hitting somebody's heart at precisely the right time. It does not require a huge amount of force. It requires some force, but a human being can actually generate sufficient force with simply a punch. It doesn't have to penetrate far, but it has to penetrate and hit the exact right spot in the heart at the exact right time. It has commonly been done with baseballs, hockey pucks, stuff like that, anything that's a sharp blow in a very specific area. Again, when I first saw it, I think it was about 10 years ago, it was a hockey puck that had killed a young boy. It happens in baseball, too. It's happened. Baseball, they don't normally put all that much padding, especially on the chest area, because they don't consider it a huge risk. And in fact, again, you could get 100 hits like this, and, you know, it doesn't really matter. This appears to be much more about timing than anything else. It has to hit your heart in the middle of the correct spot, in the correct, quote, spot in the rhythm. And what it appears to do is completely disrupt the heart's electrical impulses. They all go crazy, and the heart usually stops completely within about 10 to 20 seconds after the hit, and it is almost impossible to get it back started back up again. It's extraordinarily lethal. How come? Why did I suspect that this was it so quickly? Well, it's interesting. Usually what happens with it is it happens with blows to the chest like what we saw there. The person who's suffering it doesn't actually usually, they're not aware of it right away and can function for about 10 or 15 seconds. One of the most common things to happen is they actually, after the initial blow, they actually get back up. This happened with the hockey player that I was thinking of. It's happened with a kid who got hit in the chest with a baseball. It's a frequent thing. They get hit, they fall down, they get back up, and 5 or 6 seconds later, they fall down and their heart has already stopped. Their heart has already stopped. That is an extraordinarily unique set of circumstances. We know that he was being administered CPR almost immediately. His heart had stopped. He had gone into cardiac arrest. We know that he had gotten up and didn't really seem to think that anything was wrong immediately, and then collapsed. It is the prototypical what you would expect out of a heart concussion. So, not a medical doctor, but if I had to guess, that's what this is, because we've seen this before, and that's what it looks like. That, unfortunately, there's almost nothing that can be done about it. You can add a little more padding and so on and so forth to the chest, but again, even a punch can do this. It's not the violent nature of the sport. You'd have to shut down all sports for the most part to completely stop it. You'd have to shut down all human contact at or around the chest level. It can be done with very little force. It's rare, it's unique. It looks to me like that is what happened. So, all right, I'm going to check the live chat in just a minute. I know. So, and the only reason we're spending this much time on it is because the anti-vaxxers saying it had to do with the vaccine. It didn't even really seem to have much to do with football. This wasn't a particularly violent play. This is one that anybody should have been able to withstand. It looks like it was just precisely this kind of blow that did it. And that's terribly unfortunate. Obviously, it's extremely rare. I can't imagine the players now, having to go back out there, probably more aware of this condition than they had been prior, despite the fact that their odds haven't really changed. It's a unique freak of nature, is a reasonably uncommon thing. So let me check with the live chat, and I will remind you if you want to follow up with this or anything else, including the vote, which I don't have an update on right now. You can join us on the Discord and catch up with us. Oh, that's interesting. Catch up with us there. We're also keeping track on Ukraine. Russia has updated the numbers of the latest attack. I think it was in Luhansk. It was the Ukrainians attacked and did considerable damage there. Russia has been denying most of that damage. They've now updated their figures, I think, to about 86 who died there. And they're also claiming that it was the fault of the soldiers who had violated the no cell phone policy. One of the reasons that they're very adamant about the cell phones, it isn't actually security. It's because they don't want footage of what's actually going on the front lines getting back to their families and the soldiers at home. We did have an intercept. We should actually, I think, one day when we're feeling like torturing our audience, we should play the radio intercepts coming out of Ukraine. Most of it is being done by Germany. A number of other countries do have it. And you can find a lot of it on YouTube, but everything from talking about how horrible the war is to one of the more recent ones where a Ukrainian soldier was asking for permission from his wife if he could rape Ukrainian women when he found them, and she said, yes, of course, just for God's sake, use a condom. Genuinely surreal. So, all right. I don't think we put that one in the Discord, but we should. I'll put that in the. I will try to put that into the explicit Ukraine explicit channel. So I mean, it's worth understanding the mindset of what's going on over there. But it's horrific stuff. Obviously. Yes, you're on time. You're wait. I'm here for a live stream. What a red light. Yes, yes, you're here, and we started on time, so it's a red letter day for everyone. You'd almost think we have a different producer. Um, I've read that any time in the past it hasn't been decades and 3 votes. It's taken at least 8 or 9. Yeah, I'm curious to see how many. Uh, yeah, this is they can't get their act together, and the question is what's going to happen next. Kevin McCarthy is currently trying to do horse trading, saying, look, let's vote for me and we'll make it easier to remove me, I think was the big one. I think they had proposed that a vote of no confidence could be triggered with as few as 4 Republicans. I don't know what the current number is, but I think they were talking about lowering the number to 4. If they do that, it could completely paralyze his ability to operate, because all he has to do is piss off 4 of his own party of 222, 4 of them enough that they decide that they're going to put in a vote of no confidence. So, and I mean, we've seen this happening in the UK. It happened with Boris Johnson, no confidence after no confidence, after no confidence. Now there has to be a year in between the votes, but he still got hit time and time again. Whatever he does to attempt to, and when he said, he's probably also offering favorable committee positions and/or putting forward people's specific agendas at the top of the priority. These are all typical things he might offer, but the problem is they water down his ability to operate, because now he has to follow through on those, which means whatever his other agendas would have been, he needs to go in a direction that for some reason or another he had not preferred or would have actually rather avoided. So we will so we will see. We'll keep up on that. Great job talking with Saul and Rebecca. Thank you, KCA Randy. That was I was actually impatient. I don't know if it seems that way. I think anybody who knows me was aware that I had some issues with my own patience. That's one of the reasons I went in. I wanted to just do an exercise in patience. It was a good discussion. I was glad to be there. It was interesting. And I had a number of objections, and my objections have only grown since then. But I'm not sure that, those. So it was another channel I appeared on briefly to discuss what I considered to be some profound inaccuracies in representing some scientific data. I don't think it merits that much time. It was nice to engage. I haven't engaged in that way in quite some time, but they're going to do what they're going to do. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So thank you all very much. As I said, tomorrow we will have on Commander Lance McMillan at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Overtime, and then we will have Operator Starsky on Overtime on Friday at 1 p.m. So I hope you guys will join us, and we look forward to seeing you then. Have a good day.